Hey everybody, Quantum here with another deck profile to break down my Amber Steel Perdita deck. I tried to adapt the Perdita engine into set 4 of Ursula's Return. Linked in the description is probably the gameplay video. And as usual, these deck profiles that accompany the gameplay video are released just like 24 to 48 hours early for the YouTube members, just to provide them with a little bit of a thank you for the support that they give to the channel. You can also get early access if you choose to join the YouTube channel for $2.99 a month, but you don't have to. This will all be made public eventually. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So the way I constructed this deck was basically going high on a 1 and 2 drop engine. Steel does have some pretty good cards, especially from the new set that could synergize pretty well with Perdita. So we play a total of 44 characters, only 15 uninkables and 45 inkables. We are heavy on the steel side in 41 cards, but the 19 amber cards are very, very important. Obviously, things like the Rapunzel and the Perdita obviously are huge things to be using. But to start off in the 1-drop slot, we've just got the Cinderellas and the Robin Hoods. Now, you will note that there is no Mufasa in this deck because we do want to utilize some of the very powerful songs on the steel side, unlike what Joshua used in Atlanta with Amethyst and Amber. On the steel side, you definitely want to be able to exploit the songs, hence why Amber Steel Song is such a popular deck. And while this deck isn't necessarily Amber Steel Song, obviously we're not playing aerials or, you know, the level of songs that you would play in a deck like that. This deck still does function fairly well. If you've watched the gameplay video, you probably see how it functions, especially in some of its rougher matchups, which are mainly against the Ruby decks. But why this deck works well is because it does, or is supposed to, counter fairly well the Emerald decks, mainly Emerald Steel. Because it can play around discard, it can definitely out some of the more annoying cards like Diablo, since you do play a lot of the steel songs, babooms, things like that. We'll go over that in just a second. And even into Sapphire Steel, which Amber Steel traditionally has a hard time with, despite you not playing flutes or anything. Just the high defense that you are able to put on board with like the Robin Hood, the Rapunzel, the Stitch, the Tinkerbell, the Perdita, etc., gives the steel decks, other steel decks, a bit of a harder time to deal with. So in the 1-drop slot, the 4 Cinderellas, the 4 Robin Hoods for the shift target as well. And these are both, everything here is able to be brought back off of the Perdita. And I think there's a matchup where I ended up bringing back a Robin Hood after either questing or playing a Perdita, and then next turn I was able to shift it. Right, shift that Robin Hood that I brought back onto this with the big Robin Hood, and then I have instant value. So kind of interesting synergies you can get there. Of course, you can run different things like the Queen if you wanted to. There's obviously great synergy there as well. Only 2 Piglets this time around. We're not really relying on Piglet to get a lot of lore or to aggro out the opponent. This is a more mid-range focused deck, hence why you're playing some of the control cards in the steel songs. 3 Simbas, because you do want to eventually see one of these. Having one of these in your discard, is an instant bring back and protect your board to a certain extent. Being able to dodge one interaction when your opponent has to take out the Simba before they take out anything else on board. And every time you quest with Perdita, you just bring this back for free in bodyguard mode, and it's protection for your characters, or at least one challenge usually. The Magic Broom is also a really great card to bring back off Perdita, being a 2-cost card, a 2/3 body that gets evasive during your turn, easily allows you to deal with evasive threats on the opponent's side. And of course, the main one that comes to mind is in the Emerald deck, the Diablo. So being able to take out Diablo with this, bringing this back, very, very useful. The Mickey Mouse is basically a pseudo crab, but being a 2-cost character, you can constantly recur this with Perdita, so you can constantly have Challenger +2 on any of your characters, making them instantly more stronger than their current stats, right? Making Simba a 4/3, making the Magic Broom a 4/3, right? When you bring back the Mickey Mouse and boost up your characters, the Smee can become a 5/3. Your Tinkerbell down here can become a 6/5, for example, basically taking out anything that the opponent might have. We are playing 3 Mr. Smees as well. This, in my opinion, is better than the Piglet, so you can even opt to cut Piglets and just say I'm going to rely on Smees, because even when you quest with this and it gets banished because of the damage, you just bring it back with Perdita. Just a 3/3 body better than a 2/2 for the same 2 cost. You don't need the condition of having 2 characters on board. Yes, this can quest for 2 more, but the Smee having the extra strength and defense stat, in my opinion, is a little bit more valuable. But the Piglet is good too. I think Piglet did clutch out a match for me, or maybe I was already winning and I didn't need the Piglet. But Piglet is still decent. Quest for 3, being able to put 2 on board is crazy. Quest for 6, so it can come up. And again, you can opt to run more of these, less of these. It's depending on how you want to build a deck. I'm going old school. I'm going back to the Tinkerbell, because this deck really does rely on kind of putting in I don't want to say a surprise, but packing a big punch, like in order to get value, if that makes sense. Like you're not developing a board state where you drop something and you're gonna have like crazy instant value. Like the Perdita is a slow roll. You play it, you get a card back. The card that comes back, you know, like the Cinderella can't sing right away. The Robin Hood can't be shifted and used right away. Like you can shift it, but you can't use it, you know, to quest or challenge right away. The Tinkerbell dropping, just dealing 1 damage for everything, is still good, but you just want higher impact. And playing the smaller Tinkerbell, being a 2/4 body, in my opinion, is actually pretty relevant. People might end up brawling this, right? So you out the brawl with a card like this, which is nice. But just threatening that shift, being able to shift this, deal 1 damage, take out a threat, deal 2 more damage somewhere else, really, really valuable. Yes, this is one of the cards that is not synergizing with the Perdita, but in and of itself, I think this is a decent card. Plus, I think in one of my matchups, I was using the filter ability, well, I call it the filter ability, but the draw 1, discard 1, in order to fish for like a whole new world, so that can come up as well, which is interesting. For Rapunzel, no need to explain this, right? All of your top end here has super high defense. Being able to heal up anything and draw cards is super relevant. Plus, you have the same synergy as you do with Amber Steel's song in damaging your own cards with your own songs in order to draw off Rapunzel. Not that you would want to do that too often, but that is a line that you could utilize. Of course, the Robin Hood just represents great value on the shift here, of course, and being able to sing songs is very relevant. Perdita, you know, a powerhouse in and of itself. Unfortunately, it does get outed by a lot of the Ruby cards, which is why Ruby is such a tough matchup for this deck in particular. But you haven't really seen people use the 1-drop Sisu all that much. Yes, you are threatened by the big 8-drop Sisu, banishing all things that are 2 strength or less, and brawls. But in general, being able to drop this, get immediate value, and then if it does end up surviving, you know, questing and getting an additional free resource still is super powerful. It's the reason why this deck, or I shouldn't say this deck, but a Perdita deck ended up winning the Atlanta Challenge. Yes, it was a different metagame where Perdita was much stronger because of less strength-based removal, but if you do play Perdita and you're not playing against Ruby, like it's still very, very strong too, right? So keep that in mind. Tinkerbell, again, just a good sweeper. And then Stitch is just, I think this, I've talked about this before, but I think this card in Ursula's Return is really underlooked right now in Amber. I know Amber isn't the most popular, but being a 4/8 body that quests for 2 and draws you 2 cards, like there's not much that deals with this card. The 4 stat line, the 4 strength stat line dodges a lot of removal. Ruby, Sapphire need the ice blocks in order to ice block this down in order for it to be affected by Medusa and things like that, which, oh sorry, let me go back. So yes, Perdita is also targeted by Medusa, which does weaken it a little bit more in this meta. So you have Medusa, the big Sisu, and Brawl, which is why this card kind of fell out of favor. But like I said, in general, you're going to be able to get at least some value off of this to a certain degree. Plus, this card coming down, you know, making your Piglet instantly live if you already have one on board, making your Stitch instantly live, right? Requesting with this, putting the second character on board, dropping the Stitch after that, right? If this does survive return, like there's a lot of little synergies with the Perdita and like the cards on Amber that require multiple characters in play in order to trigger their effects, like Piglet and Stitch, that just synergize fairly well. But yeah, Stitch can also become a big body with the Mickey Mouse potentially, right? Becoming a 6 strength character with 8 defense, and then, you know, just healing it up with Rapunzel for more card draw. Absolutely crazy. Tuba Boom, so again, just more anti-aggro slash, which, you know, you shouldn't really have a problem with aggro since you play so low to the ground anyways, but, you know, getting those Diablos out of rotation early if needed, and at worst it's just ink. And then you play a very robust song package as you can in the steel decks. So only 2 grab your swords because, you know, the shift, tink, sing, grab your swords is still very powerful, right? Dealing 3 damage to everything on board will wipe out Emerald completely. Will do a decent amount of damage into Sapphire decks as well. Not necessarily Sapphire Steel if they put up the Cogsworth, but, you know, you can hopefully aggro out those Sapphire Steel decks before they're able to really start controlling the board. And they really do rely on like the Tamatoa Lucky Dime. So if you can win before they get that setup going, which you can definitely do with this deck doesn't have that bad of a matchup against Sapphire Steel. Let the Storm Rage on, Strength of a Raging Fire, Along Came Zeus, and 4 whole new worlds. So you're really depending on the shift packages in order to utilize these songs. Yes, it is unfortunate that you do play so many 1 and 2 cost characters because that means you don't get as much utility off of these songs. But, you know, the Rapunzel, the Tinkerbell, the 3-drop 1 can sing these no problem. Even Robin Hood singing these doesn't necessarily represent bad value. If your Robin Hood can't challenge something, you can sing a song with it instead of questing. So you do have some versatility there. The only thing is you probably never want to sing with Perdita. If you have the opportunity to quest with Perdita, you're likely always questing with it unless you have nothing in your discard pile. But, you know, you can just hard cast these 2 and it still works. And again, because like the Rapunzel is a great singer for Zeus, this is a decent card as well to out some bigger threats. And then the Whole New World just represents like insane value, because the more things you put in your discard, like off a Whole New World or being able to disrupt your opponent, the more toolbox-esque kind of cards you have ready for Perdita, right? If you dump like your hand, and then just refreshing your hand in general is good, right? Against all these decks that focus so much on maintaining a strong draw engine, things like the Diablo Emerald with Beast Tragic Hero, Sapphire Steel with Hiram, same with Ruby Sapphire. So a Whole New World represents good value there as well. Yeah, only 15 uninkables, so you shouldn't have a problem with ink in this deck, but let me know what you think. Just, again, trying to make something work, something new and interesting. Kind of a fun deck, but I think in the gameplay video, if you watched it, you saw that we were able to go up against some Ruby decks and actually put in some work against some of our more tougher matchups, but need to test some more with this deck to find out if it is actually viable into some of the more meta relevant threats. But with Pixelborn closing, I don't think we'll be able to do that anytime soon. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed, drop a like, I would appreciate it, and leave a comment, let me know what you think. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.